Hi everyone, and welcome to my instructional video on the topic of successfully overcoming a faster aircraft from a lower energy state. In this example, I'm flying a clipped-wing Spitfire LF Mark 9E with a low altitude tuned Merlin 66 engine running up to 18 pounds of boost, against a BF-109 G14 powered by a DP605AM peaking at 1.7 ATA with MW50, also at low altitude. This arrangement leaves the BF-109 with a higher climb rate and maximum speed than the Spitfire, but with lower overall maneuverability in turn and roll rate. What this means for me is that the BF-109 is free to choose the terms of the engagement. He can do almost anything he wants with no recourse, as long as I remain at a lower energy state. He's also free to disengage at any time. The only real options I have to exploit against him are the limited viewing angles out of his cockpit and his own greed for the kill. Of these, it is the second that is by far the most important. As we open the engagement, we see the BF-109 has locked onto me from a higher altitude. This is a very dangerous position for a lower aircraft. If I wasn't confident I could counterattack, my only option would be to head for the deck and dive away, hoping he wasn't feeling like giving away all of his stored up kinetic energy for the sake of one lone Spitfire. Fighter aircraft possess two kinds of energy, kinetic and potential, also known as speed and altitude, and any skilled fighter pilot will seek to maximize his conversion between the two with as few inefficiencies as possible, such as hard turns or power-off scenarios while in a dogfight situation. Conversion is usually easier for the aircraft with a high power-to-weight ratio, in this case the BF-109. As my footage begins, the BF-109 has already turned to give chase. I now know that I have no choice but to begin responding to his moves if I'm to survive this engagement, so I immediately counter with a gentle turn away from him and a shallow dive. I call this descending pressure. Descending pressure is an extremely effective tool in an energy fight. As aircraft approach their maximum speeds, the effects of parasitic drag begin to add up. My first priority is to equalize the energy states between our aircraft. This will ideally allow me to use the Spitfire's maneuverability to jump onto the opponent's 6 before he's able to regain enough energy with his more powerful aircraft to climb away. To do this, I bait the opponent into accelerating until he nears his maximum speed. This effectively caps how much potential energy he'll be able to regain when he chooses to abort his attack and climb away. An aircraft zoom climbing from 450 miles an hour will always have a fixed amount of altitude it can climb before that speed bleeds off, but it can spend a lot of time effectively capped at 450 miles an hour due to drag, lowering the starting point for that zoom climb. In many situations, you don't even need full throttle to maintain high speeds in these dives, so I'm diving away at only 12 pounds of boost to save my full amount of horsepower for later. Merlin 66 are only rated to run 18 pounds of boost for 5 minutes. By doing this, I successfully bring him down to my altitude with only a small speed differential as he makes his first attack. As he closes to gun range, I put the Spitfire into a gentle turn. Turns burn energy, but not always at the same rate depending on aircraft. In this case, the Spitfire can hold its energy better through the turn than the BF-109, while simultaneously making it harder for the enemy to hold a steady sight picture for his guns. As he approaches to fire, I tighten the turn to spoil his shot, followed by a roll back into him, closing the distance between our aircraft. He goes into a climb, but it's well within gun range, so I put some hopeful shots into the air around his plane while I am close enough. My attack misses, but he's forced to disengage. This pilot has already shown a willingness to try to take me down, so I consider it pretty likely he'll make another attempt as soon as he thinks he can. I throw a few more shots in his direction, but without any real intent. I want to keep him on the hook so he comes back to try again. Anticipating his next move, I apply climbing pressure. I pull my nose up until my airspeed falls to the Spitfire's best climbing speed of 170 miles an hour. For this I stick to 12 pounds of boost, as I know the Spitfire cannot outclimb the BF-109 G14 even at emergency power. As I can't overhaul him in the climb, I just use it to apply pressure and not to make an offensive move. As predicted, he uses the higher speed and climb rate of the G14 to pull back up above me to try and reset his attack as before. When I realise I have no chance of getting close enough to make a shot, I bunt the nose down aggressively in order to grab some airspeed and most importantly distance from the enemy plane. As we saw in the opening moves of the fight, distance is key for descending pressure to help equalise the energy differential between the two planes. The longer the enemy spends diving at your 6 at high speed, the more energy he's burning into parasitic drag. spends a long time diving toward my 6 in a very flat approach. This is a critical mistake on his part. Barring a significant difference in aircraft power, flat approaches at high speed do nothing but ensure you'll soon be travelling at the same speed and altitude as your opponent. As he closes to firing range, I repeat the tight turn from his last attack, a manoeuvre known as the energy trap. This manoeuvre is designed to make the faster aircraft pull a large amount of elevated deflection and therefore angle of attack to keep your plane in his gun sight, thereby throwing away a huge amount of airspeed in the hope of a kill shot. As he overshoots, I pull back into his flight path, throttle to the firewall, our planes now travelling at roughly the same speed and around 3/4 of a mile apart. The 109 makes his most critical error when he misreads my energy state, thinking that my plane is slower than it really is and deciding he has time to try and force me into a stall nose up under his plane. In reality, I have the full 1700 horsepower of the Merlin 66 throwing me into the sky behind him, and partly thanks to the flight path prediction of the Spitfire's Mark II gyro gun sight, I'm able to line up my guns with his vector and take out his engine in a single burst. His advantage now gone, he dives for the deck in an attempt to throw me off, but we're almost directly over my airfield anyway and I fancy more ammo, so I don't hesitate to follow him down and score a couple of more hits. The engine of his crippled aircraft sputters to a halt, and he gets to enjoy the hospitality of the British for the rest of the war. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. The tactics within can be employed in a variety of situations. Indeed, the energy trap is an invaluable technique and works even better with a wingman to capitalise on the opponent's reduced energy state. The most important thing to remember is that you want to drain the opponent of his advantage rather than jumping at every snapshot opportunity. Don't be afraid to drop your nose down when chasing an opponent vertically and allow their own greed to be their undoing as they push their aircraft too far to try and get you. In an energy fight, it is often the most patient pilot that wins. Good hunting.